Hello, this is the Bible in fewer words. We are Carol and Steve Wells. This is episode 58, Numbers, chapter 12. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Carol.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Great. I understand that we need to fill in the last episode with one little incident.
That's right. Yeah, I left something out that we need to cover.
Let's do it.
Okay. So first of all, maybe we need to explain where this fits in.
Mm-hmm.
In the last episode, we had people complaining about not having enough food.
Yes, and I'm sure they regret having complained they didn't have enough food.
God got angry.
Uh-huh.
I guess he burned some of them to death, and then Moses had a little chat with God saying, hey, if I'm going to, how am I going to feed all these people?
Got to help me out here, God.
Yeah, and God says, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to send them food, lots and lots of food. And so right after that, then we have this little incident that we're going to talk about now.
Okay.
So it's in verse 24 of chapter 11. Moses told the people what God said, and he gathered 70 elders to the tabernacle. So this is, God told him about the food that he was going to make, I guess. Give him. God came down in a cloud and gave his spirit to the 70 elders who began to prophesy nonstop.
So where are these 70 elders are taken from the crowd? They just all kind of came up? And are they in the tabernacle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like a tent.
Uh-huh.
And
so they're having a little conference.
Yeah, and God came down in a cloud.
Really?
And his spirit came upon them.
Okay.
And they began to prophesy.
What does that really mean?
I don't know. But
it's not like foretelling the future.
No, it's not that. It's like when they're overcome with emotion and spirit, they start saying stuff and doing things.
Intelligible words?
I don't know.
Okay, so it could be something like this.
It could be like speaking in tongues,
okay.
Perhaps. But it's definitely something that is a strange thing that happens to someone when they start to prophesy. You know it when you see it.
So it might be like a precursor to a revival.
It might. Yeah,
okay.
That's kind of how I picture it.
All right. So they're all prophesying in the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
The 70 men.
Yes. But 2 men remained in the camp, Eldad and Medad, and began to prophesy on their own.
So the camp is outside the tabernacle.
Yeah.
All right, so they're not part of the 70.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're just outside there, and they start to prophesy on their own.
Yep.
They have very interesting names.
Yeah, Eldad and Medad. A young man ran and told Moses, saying, Eldad and Medad prophesy in the camp.
I guess that's not allowed.
Well, I think that's what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joshua says to Moses, Moses, forbid them. But Moses said, hey, I wish everybody was a prophet.
So Moses didn't do anything about the 2 guys.
No, he was happy. He says, that's fine. I wish everybody was a prophet. And then that's the end of the little episode. I want to get the episode about Eldad and Medad. And then it goes on from there, of course, with the quails.
Yes.
Lots and lots of quails.
And that's know about the quails.
That's the end of that chapter and that episode. Now we're going to get into this episode.
Okay, so first I want to just note that there's a guy who goes and reports it. And then he reports it to Joshua. Who's Joshua?
Oh, I don't know if he reported it to Joshua, but Joshua heard it anyway. Joshua is like Moses' lieutenant.
Mm.
He's a very important figure in the Bible, and we will see lots of him later.
Okay, he's Moses' right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses doesn't pay any attention to him when he says, hey, do something about those 2 guys.
Well, in this case, no. He just says, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'd like everybody to prophesy. It's great.
Okay.
Can't have too much prophecy.
All right. Well, that is kind of an interesting story. I'm glad you brought it to our attention.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting.
So now we are at Numbers 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go ahead with that.
Okay.
So verse 1. Miriam and Aaron, Moses' sister and brother, criticized Moses for marrying an Ethiopian woman. this is a whole new tack. Like, where are we in relation to having quails up to our noses?
Well, we're done with that,
Okay.
I think.
So everybody kind of survived and cleaned up the mess.
Yeah, there was a prophecy and there was the quails, and we're into a new thing here.
Okay. And so what are they criticizing Moses about?
About his
yeah.
Ethiopian wife.
His Ethiopian wife. Well, wait a second. Wasn't Moses married to somebody else?
Yes, he was. Zipporah.
Oh, I remember. We said Moses was not much of a family man because he just left Zipporah and his 2 boys with his father-in-law.
Seems like he did, yeah. We never heard of them again. They came to meet him, didn't even greet or talk to them. He was all excited about seeing Jethro, but he pretty much ignored them, and then apparently they left and went home with Jethro.
So he ignored his wife and his 2 boys.
I think so. They never mentioned it again. But now, all of a sudden, we find out for the first time that Moses has another wife, an Ethiopian woman. And
so
Moses
just married her. Went in a tent with her.
We don't know. All that we know is that she exists. Some people say that maybe she is Zipporah. Maybe it's the same person. Maybe they're complaining about that. But she was from Midian, not Ethiopia. So that doesn't seem to make any sense. And we don't know whether Zipporah is still alive. I assume she is. So it looks like Moses is a polygamist, right? Has more than one wife.
I guess so.
And maybe that's what they're complaining about, more than the fact that she's Ethiopian.
And she's never named.
She's not named.
Because she's a woman.
That's pretty common in the Bible for women
so.
not to be named. But so we don't know if it's because she's Ethiopian. We don't know if it's because she's non-Hebrew. We don't know if it's because this would be his second wife and they object to that. We just don't know. But they complained. Okay. And we all know that in Numbers, you don't want to complain about Moses or God. And they did that.
Ooh. So they said, has God only spoken to Moses? Hasn't he also spoken to us? So they're kind of saying, why is he being so special?
Yeah, and God heard it.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's a verse that is just a very interesting verse. It says, now Moses was very meek. He was the meekest man on earth.
Well, that is quite a compliment.
Yeah, and you know who supposedly wrote that verse?
The first 5 books of the Bible?
Yeah, they're the books of Moses, and Moses supposedly wrote this verse about himself.
He is meek, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's also humble.
Suddenly, God said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, come to the tabernacle, all 3 of you. It sounds to me like they're in trouble.
I think so. So they went to the tabernacle, and God came down in a cloud-like pillar and stood in front of them and said, if there's a prophet among you, I'll speak to him in a dream.
So he's not going to tell him right now. Moses is my favorite, and he's my prophet. No.
I think he is.
So, except for Moses, I speak to him mouth to mouth and not using dark phrases. He sees me as I am.
So why weren't you afraid to criticize him, God says.
Oh.
So yeah, he is saying that, hey, I can speak to people in dreams. Prophets in dreams. But Moses, I speak to directly, face to face.
Mouth to mouth. That's weird.
Yeah, it is. But that's what the Bible says. And he sees me as I am. He's very special. So how come you're not afraid of criticizing him? God's saying.
So it sounds like Aaron and Miriam are in trouble.
Big trouble.
So verse 9, God was angry with Miriam and Aaron. The cloud, a.k.a. God, left the tabernacle, and Miriam became leprous. What did he do to Aaron?
Yeah. Well, Aaron says to Moses, please don't be angry with us. Don't make Miriam like a dead person whose flesh is half consumed like a newborn baby.
I guess they've been delivering babies, and when babies are born, they kind of come out with
this... They're pretty creepy looking.
Yeah, this white, looks like decomposed skin probably. It probably is decomposed skin.
Yeah.
So Moses cried out to God, saying, "Please, God, heal her now."
God said to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face, shouldn't she be ashamed 7 days?"
Okay, so her father is God, and he spit in her face, and she should be embarrassed, and so she should go away for 7 days.
I think that's what he means. The next verse says, what God explains further
Okay,
is...
but just a second. God didn't spit in her face, but he might as well have. That would have been better than giving her leprosy.
I don't know. That's a strange thing for somebody to say. So when Moses asked God to heal her, God says to Moses, "If her father had spit in her face, shouldn't she be ashamed 7 days?"
No, I'm not going to heal her. That's what that means.
I don't know. It's just a very... How would those words come out of anybody's mouth? Anyway, God sometimes says the strangest things, right?
Yes.
Anyway, he further went on to say, "Expel her from the camp for 7 days. After that, let her come in again."
And Miriam was expelled from the camp for 7 days, and the people resumed their journey after she returned to camp.
Yeah, we never really hear from her again.
Oh, the rest of the Bible, we never hear from her?
No.
What is more important to me is, do we think she is healed from leprosy?
It doesn't say that she was, but it does sound like she was allowed back into the camp, and I don't think she would have if she still had leprosy.
You're correct. We learned those rules about being unclean and
that's
participating
right.
in camp life.
So I think she was. What's puzzling to me is that they were both complaining about God's special guy, Moses, but only one of them got punished.
Yes, the woman got punished.
Yeah, Aaron, just like when Aaron made the golden calf, God and Moses both went crazy and killed lots of people.
Yeah.
But Aaron, they didn't even criticize or
he even
reprimand.
Was blaming it on other people.
He blamed it on others.
He
blamed it on them. Yeah, and God and Moses went along with it. And here, Aaron, nobody even says anything about Aaron.
No, he's getting off scot-free.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the end of our story. That's the end of chapter 12.
That is the end of our story for tonight. Good night, kids. I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.